Yo, what's going on? Y'all, your boy Devvon Terrell, and welcome to another Help Me Devvon tutorial. And today, in this Help Me Devvon tutorial, I'll be showing you guys why I mix into a limiter and why I think it could help you and give you an idea of why I go about this process. Now, please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, one lucky commenter is going to get a free t-shirt from myaudionerds.com with one of my favorite sayings, for instance, Control S saves lives. A bunch of other stuff on there for you. And also, make sure you go to helpmedevvon.com at any time to get some of our vocal chains, templates, and everything to keep this channel going. Now, let's get to the tutorial. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm gonna let you hear this song with no limiter. When I play this song for you with no limiter, I want you to analyze the sonics. I want you to listen to the snare, listen to the vocals, listen to the kick, listen to all the elements of the song. So without the limiter first, this is one of my own songs called Boys Don't Cry on all streaming platforms right now. Listen close.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry.
Cool. Now let's listen to it with a limiter on.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Boys don't cry.
Now, let me tell you what I heard in the difference between those two sounds. One was without a limiter. Obviously, that was the quieter one, and one was with the limiter. What I noticed was the snare. I felt like the snare was a lot louder, and I felt like, I need to pull back on that snare a bit more. But in the previous version, not limited, you notice that it felt fine. Well, why I mix into a limiter is this reason right here. Most of our songs are gonna get mastered. We're gonna throw a limiter on at some point down the line when it comes to the final completion of my song. I wanna know, how is my mix going to react to a limiter? So it's a lot of times when you come to your mix and you started your mix and you've done it, and then when you're done with your mix, you bring it up to the limiter, you're like, whoa, what's happening? Well, I learned a long time ago that I didn't like running into that issue. So I started to mix through my limiter so that I can kind of get an idea of what I'm getting out of my limiter from my actual mix. I noticed differences with my vocal. I noticed differences with my kicks. I noticed my guitars might be too low. I noticed how that limiter is going to shape my sound when it comes down that line at the final spot of my actual finished product. And it allows me to stay in my mix part of the actual process to really fine tune it so that when it hits that limiter, I know that I'm still getting my mix balance and the sonics that I enjoy. Let's go into the DAW and get a little bit more of a deeper understanding of that. So, like I told you before, the first thing I noticed was, that snare feels a little too loud. Check this out without the limiter on. Listen to the snare. I want you to focus on the snare and the kick. I want you to focus on the snare and the kick. So listen to the snare and the kick.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry.
And now with it, snare and kick. Listen.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Boys don't cry.
I like how the limiter is reacting to my kick. I like that it gave my kick a lot more power. Now, what I was originally going to do was I was going to boost the sound of the kick before the limiter was on. When I was listening to the mix for a while, I was like, oh, the kick needs a little bit more. But when the limiter came on, I noticed, oh, wait, it actually sounds pretty nice. I like how hard the kick is hitting from that perspective. And then I noticed that the snare felt too loud with the limiter. So now what am I gonna do? It's allowing me to say, hey, I understand what's gonna happen later down the line, so I can make the correction now to really get that mix fine-tuned and balanced. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna bring down my snare just a little bit and see how that feels in the mix while it's hitting that limiter, and find the right sound as far as it's concerned. Then we'll listen to it without the limiter and see how it sounds. So let's go to our actual song, play it through the limiter, bring down our snare to a place we like, and listen to what that sounds like. Okay, so this is our snare right here. This is through the limiter.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Boys
Cool, so we turn down the snare, not the impact snare that you see that comes on every kind of fourth, but I turn down the main snare just a little bit and I feel a little bit better about it. Now let's turn off the limiter and hear what that sounds like without the limiter.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Boys don't cry.
So without the limiter on, I say to myself, oh, it feels like I need to turn up the snare just a little bit, just to get a little bit of oomph out of it. But when the limiter's on, it actually makes the snare louder. So with hearing it going through the limiter, I'm discovering that I really don't need to make that snare louder because I'm already seeing how the limiter is reacting to that transient sound. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is my settings on my limiter that I use to just test out what it sounds like? Check this out. This might shock you. When it comes to my limiter, as far as the limiter I like to mix through, I just pretty much use a simple L2 limiter, which I'm sure a lot of you do have if you use a lot of Waves plugins. And what I like to do is I don't like to smash it. I don't ask for a lot of gain reduction, or I'm not looking to really hit the limiter hard, but I'm just looking to get some effect out of the limiter. So check out the reaction of my mix to this limiter.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry.
It's actually a surprise. It's not doing anything really in essence of how much it's attenuating the signal, but it is giving me a sonic characteristic of a limiter. So I'm really not smashing or really cutting off, chopping peaks like that, but I am seeing that as I pull down that threshold and the limiter starts to react, I am getting an idea of its essence, of what it's going to do if I pull it down even more. So when I'm mixing through my limiter, I'm not even trying to really hit that limiter to a point where I'm actually even getting some limiting happening. I'm really doing it just to see what it feels like with just a hair of the processing there. And just with a little bit of that processing from the limiter, I get to really get the truth about my mix as far as what's going to happen to it. So what I suggest is put the limiter on your mix bus and just do it just a hair, not even getting any real limiting happening, but just until you can hear the feeling of the effect. Check this out. It's the last thing I'll show you in that regard. So let's put this all the way at the top, and then let's bring the threshold down. Check this out.
Playing 'cause boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. You'll never see that side of me.
So you see, for me, I go down to a spot where I'm not getting really anything on my meters as far as what the limiter is telling me as far as getting actual limiting happening where it's chopping those peaks off. But I noticed that when I turn down the threshold, I am getting some of the limiting effect. So that's all I'm really looking for, is seeing what my mix does when it's affected by a limiter. I'm not trying to get 3 dB of gain. There's no set time. I'm really just not even looking for any of that. I'm really just trying to see what it does when it kisses the limiter. So I hope this was helpful. That was my tutorial on why I mix through a limiter to help me really get and know down the line what's going to happen. This is important. And this is why a lot of people, when they send it to mastering, why they get disappointed from time to time, because perhaps you didn't realize how your mix reacted to an actual limiter, or clipping for that matter, or whatever the mastering engineer decides to use. So I hope that was helpful. Make sure you follow us at Help Me Devvon on Instagram. Also, like I said, one lucky commenter is going to win a myaudionerds.com shirt. Make sure you head on over there too as well and comment. Also, make sure you follow us on our Discord community with a bunch of aspiring engineers like yourself, getting game and trading secrets, etc. And also make sure you visit helpmedevvon.com at any time to get some of our vocal chains, templates, and keep this channel going. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and until next time, you guys.